I discovered books that I had completely forgotten I owned. How funny is that? G'day to all you lovely people and welcome back to my channel. I have been asked so many times to do a library tour, a bookshelf tour of all the books I own, but I have quite a few, and instead what I've decided to do is show you books in a particular genre. And today I'm going to show you my fantasy books. In fact, I've had to split this video into two parts because it was getting very long. The way I store my books is I keep my paperbacks separate from my hardcovers and trade paperbacks, which are behind me. Today I'm only going to show you all my fantasy paperbacks. I'm also going to include my small sci-fi collection, plus the few vampire books I have, as they kind of fall within both fantasy and horror. I should also point out that most of my fantasy collection is older fantasy, more classic fantasy, dating back from the 80s and 90s. I don't have as much modern day fantasy as in fantasy that's come out in the last 10 years, though I have a few of those as well. You might also notice that my paperback shelves have a few empty spaces. That's because I ran out of room. I used to have all my paperbacks on 2 bookcases. Now I've had to go to 3, and I've left room to expand because I always buy books. And finally, the way I'm going to do this is I will give you an overview of the bookcases, then a pan of each shelf before I show you the individual books themselves. So as this is a long video, grab a snack and your favorite beverage, sit back and relax. This is my library. These are 2 of my bookshelves. All my books are alphabetical. Ben Aronovich, Rivers of London. I'm not continuing this series. This is book 1. Book 2, Moon Over Soho. The 3rd book, Whispers Underground. Douglas Adams, The Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul. I have several Star Wars series. This one is by Roger McBride Allen. Ambusher Corellia is the 1st book. Book 2, Assault at Salonia. Book 3, Showdown at Centerpoint. This is the Kevin Anderson Jedi Academy trilogy, one of the better ones. The 1st book is Jedi Search. Book 2, Dark Apprentice. And the 3rd book, Champions of the Force. Pierce Anthony, Virtual Mode. This is the Adept series by Anthony. Split Infinity is the 1st book. Book 2, Blue Adept. I really like this cover. Book 3, Juxtaposition. Book 4, Outer Phase. And yes, they're all different editions because that's all I could find. I only recently got these. Robot Adept is book 5. And Unicorn Point is book 6. The final book, Phased Doubt. I really like this cover. The Last Smile in Sunder City by Luke Arnold. I only recently read this. It's urban fantasy. Isaac Asimov's Robot series. I love this. The 1st book is The Caves of Steel. 2nd book, The Naked Sun. 3rd book, The Robots of Dawn. The Clan of the Cave Bear by Jean M. All. I've had this donkey's years. The sequel, The Valley of Horses. Margaret Atwood, The Handmaid's Tale. Robert Asprin, Linda Evans, Wages of Sin. I've heard good things about Robert Asprin. Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. I don't know why I've still got this. It's the 1st in the Grisha trilogy. The next 2 books were gifted to me by someone. This is Shadows and Light by Anne Bishop. And The House of Guyon by Anne Bishop. Ben Bova, Voyages. The Sword of Shannara by Terry Brooks. I tried this many years ago and didn't like it, but I'm going to give it another go. Apparently I have another book by him, The Elf Queen of Shannara. Firebrand by Marion Zimmer Bradley is a retelling of Cassandra of Troy. The Mists of Avalon is also a retelling of the Arthurian legend from the perspective of the women, also by Marion Zimmer Bradley. It's really good if you haven't read it. And Lythant by Bradley. Black Trillium is by Bradley, Julian May and Andre Norton. It's part of the Trillium series. I'm not sure if I've got them all. Peter V. Brett, The Painted Man. This is a new series I haven't read yet, but I want to try. The second book, The Desert Spear. The Daylight War. I love this cover. The Skull Throne. And I only recently received the fifth book, The Call. Oh, the Red Rising series. I love this series by Pierce Brown. The first book is Red Rising. The second book, and in my opinion the best, is Golden Sun. The third, Morning Star. These are sequels to the Red Rising trilogy. The first is Iron Gold. And the second is Dark Age. Jim Butcher's become a favourite. This is the Codex Alera. Book 1, Furies of Calderon. Book 2, which I got second-hand, Academ's Fury. Now, you guys know how much I love the Dresden Files because I've reviewed every single book except for the short stories. This is the first book in the series, Stormfront. Second book, Full Moon. Third book, Grave Peril. Book 4, Summer Night. Book 5, Death Masks. Book 6, Blood Rites. Book 7, Deadbeat. Book 8, Proven Guilty. Book 9, White Knight. Book 10, one of my favourites, Small Favour. Side Jobs is actually a short story collection. Turncoat is book 11. Book 12, which changes everything, hence the name is Changes. Book 13, Ghost Story. Book 14, Cold Days. Briefcases is another short story collection. Book 15, Skin Game. 16, Peace Talks. I bought Battleground because it is the only book I don't have in paperback, and now my set is complete. Trudy Canavan is an Australian author. This is the first book in the Black Magician trilogy, The Magician's Guild. I actually met her. Book 2, The Novice. Book 3, The High Lord. Orson Scott Card, Ender's Game. I had a lot of trouble getting all the books in the series. This is Speaker for the Dead. Xenocide. Children of the Mind. Shadow Puppets. Sarah. Seventh Son is the first in the Tales of Alvin Maker. And Red Prophet. Rama series by Arthur C. Clarke. Rendezvous with Rama is the first book. I just read this. Rama 2. And Garden of Rama. Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I like the film. The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. The first book is Hunger Games. Catching Fire, Mockingjay, and this is only recently come out, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. The Pines Trilogy by Blake Crouch. I've just read this, so I haven't unwrapped them. The books are Pines, Wayward, and The Last Town. The First Chronicles of Thomas Covenant by Stephen Donaldson. The first book is Lord Fowl's Bane. Second book, The Power That Preserves. And the third, The Ill Earth War. Sarah Douglas, I actually met her. She's an Australian author. She's even signed quite a few of my books. This is Battle Axe, the first book in the Axis trilogy, which is known as something else in the States. Second book, Enchanter. The third, Starman. I don't know where my first book is of the Wayfarer Redemption. This is Pilgrim. Threshold is a standalone by Douglas. Beyond the Hanging Wall is also a standalone novel. Cannon's-All by L. Warren Douglas. I haven't read this yet, and I've had it for a long time. This is The Belgariad by David Eddings. The first book is Pawn of Prophecy. They're really old and very well read. Book 2, Queen of Sorcery. Book 3, Magician's Gambit. Book 4, Castle of Wizardry. And the final book, Enchanter's Endgame. The Mallorean is the sequel series to The Belgariad. The first book is Guardians of the West. Book 2, King of the Murgos. Book 3, Demon Lord of Coranda. Book 4, Sorcerers of Darshava. And the final book, Cirrus of Cal. This is the Crown of Stars series by Kate Elliott. I've read this several times and I really like it. The first book is King's Dragon. Book 2, Prince of Dogs. 3, The Burning Stone. 4, Child of Flame. 5, The Gathering Storm. 6, In the Ruins. And the final book, Crown of Stars. I love this. This is The Never-Ending Story by Michael End, on which the film is based on. Jennifer Fallon is an Australian author. The Tide Lords is my favourite of her series. The first book is The Immortal Prince. Book 2, The Gods of Amarantha. 3, The Palace of Impossible Dreams. The final book, The Chaos Crystal. Another series by Jennifer Fallon, The Demon Child. First book is Medalon. Book 2, Treason Keep. The third book, Harshini. This is the Empire series by Raymond E. Feist and Janie Warts. I really love this series because it features a very strong female protagonist. The first book is The Daughter of the Empire. Book 2, Servant of the Empire. Book 3, Mistress of the Empire. Fairy Tale is a standalone by Raymond Feist as well. Kate Forsyth is an Australian author. The Witches of Elenan series, I think that's how you pronounce it. The first book is Dragon Claw. Book 2, The Pool of Two Moons. 3, The Cursed Towers. 4, The Forbidden Land. And the final book, The Skull of the World. I think it's the final. I actually don't remember this, but I think I might have read it years ago. It's a Star Wars based book, Splinter of the Mind's Eye by Alan Dean Foster. Spanky by Christopher Fowler. I have not read this. The Artifacts of Power series by Maggie Fury. The first book is Orion. 2, Harp of Winds. Book 3, Sword of Flame. The Jonai Saga by David Gemmell. This is the first book, Legend. I think this is the second book, Waylander. Terry Greenow, The Wandering Worlds. Nicola Griffith, Slow River. Valor is the second book in, I think it's the Faith and the Fallen series by John Gwynne. The first is in my TBR. I love this. This is the Suki Stackhouse books by Charlene Harris. I think it's called something else. This is the first book, Dead Until Dark. Book 2, Living Dead in Dallas. 3, Club Dead. 4, Dead to the World. 5, Dead as a Doornail. 6, Definitely Dead. 7, Altogether Dead. 8, From Dead to Worse. 9, Dead and Gone. This is Tales of Terror from Outer Space. I have not read this. I think it's a short story collection. Robin Hobb. I have a few of her books. I tried this Assassin's Apprentice, the first book in the Farseer trilogy, and I never finished it because I didn't like it. I don't think I have any more in this series. Book 2 in the Live Ship Traders, The Mad Ship. The first one is in my TBR because I'm halfway through. Apparently I don't have the third. The View from the Window series by Ian Irvine. I only have the first book, A Shadow on the Glass. This is the Alex Verey series by Benedict Jacker. I really like this series. The first book is Fated. 2, Chosen. 3, Cursed. 4, Taken. 5, Hidden. 6, Veiled. 7, Burned. 8, Bound. 9, Marked. 10, Fallen. 11, Forged. The final book, Risen. Now, I actually thought I had all this series, Blade Runner by K.W. Jeter, but I don't, or I can't find the first book. This is the second, The Edge of Human. Book 3, Replicant Night. I don't even know what this is, and I don't know how it ended up on my shelf. The Glass Mountains. Kate Jacoby is another Australian author. I really like the Alita series. I've read it several times. This is book 1, Exile's Return. I'm trying to find the rest in hardcover, but I haven't been successful yet. Book 2, Voice of the Demon. Book 3, Black Eagle Rising. 4, Rebel's Cage. The final book, Trial of Fire. I really like Catherine Kerr's Devery cycle or Devery cycle. There are several arcs. This is the first arc, and I know these are called something else in the States, but in Australia and UK, the first book is Dagger Spell. Book 2, Dark Spell. 3, Dawn Spell. 4, Dragon Spell. This is the Westland cycle, the second arc. The first book is A Time of Exile. 2, A Time of Omens. 3, A Time of War. 4, A Time of Justice. This is the third arc, The Dragon Mage. The first book is The Red Wyvern. I think that's how you pronounce it. Book 2, The Black Raven. 3, The Fire Dragon. This is the fourth arc, The Silver Worm Quartet. The first book is The Gold Falcon. Book 2, The Spirit Stone. 3, The Shadow Isle. 4, The Silver Mage. Sword of Fire is her most recent book. I'm not sure what the arc is called. The Dark Tower series by Stephen King is fantasy, so I'm including it. The first book is The Gunslinger. Book 2, The Drawing of the Three. Book 3, The Wastelands. The Eyes of the Dragon is also fantasy by King. And The Talisman he wrote with Peter Straub. There is also a sequel. Patricia Connealy is actually famous for being married to Jim Morrison of The Doors. She also wrote this series, The Courtyard. The first book is The Silver Branch. I don't think she's written anything else. Book 2, The Copper Crown. The third book, The Throne of Scone. I have several Mercedes Lackey books, but not all because they were very hard to find. This was pre the internet. Bardic Voices is the series. The first book is The Lark and the Wren. 2, The Robin and the Kestrel. 3, The Eagle and the Nightingales. I only have the first book in The Last Herald Mage. This is Magic's Pawn. This is the Mage War series which she wrote with Larry Dixon. The first book is The Black Griffin. This is book 3, The Silver Griffin. I think I have the second book in hardcover. I believe this is a standalone book by Lackey, The Fire Rose. Usually I pay $22 for a paperback. I got this series for $30 from the book grocer. Red Sister is the first book in the Book of the Ancestor series by Mark Lawrence. Book 2, Grey Sister. And the final book, Holy Sister. Emperor of Thorns is the third book in the Broken Empire series. I have the first book in my TBR. I like Tanith Lee and I love this book, Raining Cats and Dogs. I need to reread it. It's fantasy sci-fi. I don't even remember buying this book, Silver Hand by Morgan Llewellyn and Michael Scott. Obviously, I have not read it yet. Red Seas Under Red Skies is the second book in the Gentleman Bastard series by Scott Lynch. I have the first book in my TBR. Juliet Marillier, I think that's how you pronounce it, is a New Zealand author. I stumbled across this book by accident and loved it. Daughter of the Forest. It is the first book in the Seven Waters trilogy. I didn't like the other books as much. Book 2, Son of the Shadows. And the third book, Child of the Prophecy. I have a few books by George R.R. Martin. He wrote this with Lisa Tuttle, Windhaven. Also by Martin, Dying of the Light. I love this series by Julian May, The Saga of the Exiles. I've read it several times. The first book is The Many-Coloured Land. 2, The Golden Talk. 3, The Non-Born King. The final book, The Adversary. Intervention is like a bridging book between the Saga of the Exiles and the next series, The Galactic Milieu. The first book is Jack the Bottleless. Book 2, Diamond Mask. And the final book, Magnificat. Now, I love the Dragons of Pern series by Anne McCaffrey. I think it is an excellent series. You don't have to read them in any particular order. The first, though, is Dragonflight. All the Weirs of Pern, Dragon Song, Dragon Drums. I love these covers. Dragon Quest, Dragon Singer, Moretta, Dragon Lady of Pern, The White Dragon, The Renegades of Pern, Dragon's Dawn, and the last, The Girl Who Heard Dragons. Also by McCaffrey is the Crystal Singer series. I really like this and I've read it several times. The first book is The Crystal Singer. This is more sci-fi. Book 2, Killer Chandra. 3, Crystal Line. Fiona McIntosh is also an Australian author. I haven't read this series, The Quickening. The first book is Mirren's Gift. Book 2, Blood and Memory. Book 3, Bridge of Souls. The Forgotten Beasts of Eld by Patricia McKillop. Mist, The Book of Atras. This was very popular way back. The Recluse series by Ali Modisett Jr. I really like the magical system in this series. The first book is The Magic of Recluse. The Towers of the Sunset, Book 2. 3, The Magic Engineer. 4, The Order War. 5, The Death of Chaos. I don't have them all. This is the Spellsong Cycle series by Modisett Jr. The Soprano Sorceress is the first book. The Spellsong War is Book 2. Dark Sun Rising is Book 3. Sabriel by Garth Nix. I have a few books by Andre Norton. This is Mirror of Destiny. I'm not sure what this series is called. I think it's Alvin which she wrote with Mercedes Lackey. The first book is The Alvin. Book 2, Alvin Blood. The Rook by Daniel O'Malley. I recently read this and didn't love it. It's urban fantasy. Basically, this is my Pratchett shelf because I now have all the books, though not all here. I've lent some. I've got them in publication order because that is how I'm reading them. The first book is The Colour of Magic. The Light Fantastic, and I have to say I absolutely love these covers, so much more than the hard covers. Equal Rights introduces Granny Weatherwax. Mort, one of my favourites, has or features death. Sorcery, Weird Sisters, Moving Pictures, Reaper Man, Witches Abroad, Small Gods, one of my favourites, Lords and Ladies, Men at Arms, Soul Music, Interesting Times, Masquerade, Feet of Clay, Hogfather, Jingo, The Last Continent, Carpe Jugulum. I haven't read any from here on. Monstrous Regiment, Going Postal, Thud, Making Money, Unseen Academicals, Snuff, Raising Steam. I think the rest of these are books that Pratchett wrote for a young adult audience. This is The Amazing Maurice and His Educated Rodents, The We Free Men, A Hat Full of Sky. Wintersmith. I Shall Wear Midnight. I think this is the final book he wrote in this series, The Shepherd's Crown. Apparently I don't have Eric in a paperback, but I'm looking for it. And this is an illustrated one, I think, The Last Hero, also for a young audience. This is my third bookcase of paperbacks. I like the Quantum Leap show and the author Melanie Rawn, so when I saw this I bought it. Quantum Leap, Night of the Morning Star. The Dragon Prince series by Melanie Rawn. The first book is Dragon Prince. Book 2, Star Scroll. The third book, Sunrunner's Fire. Also by Rawn, The Ruins of Ombre, the first book in the Exile series. I have quite a few Anne Rice books. Interview with the Vampire. The Vampire Lestat. Queen of the Damned. I believe they're all part of the Vampire Chronicles. This is another series by Rice, The Witching Hour. It's about witches, obviously. And I think Lasher is the second book. The Mummy is a standalone by Anne Rice. Divergent by Veronica Roth. I like the film a lot more than the book. This is my Harry Potter collection. They're all the original books, except for this, because I found this in hardcover. And I know it's called something else in the States, but here it is, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. This is my original paperback of The Philosopher's Stone. The second book, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. You'll notice the books are getting thicker now. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. The rest are in hardcover. This is one of my favourites, The Order of the Phoenix. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. And the final book, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Dracula, based on the film by Francis Ford Coppola by Fred Saberhagen and James Hart. I'm including it because vampires are kind of fantasy. I love the Driss character that R.A. Salvatore has created. This is the first book in the Dark Elf trilogy, Homeland. The second book is Exile. I have not been able to find a newer copy because mine is falling apart. The third book, Sojourn. The Icewind Dale trilogy, which actually introduced the character of Driss, also by Salvatore. The first book is The Crystal Shard. Book 2, Streams of Silver. The third book, The Halfling's Gem. All the Driss books form part of, I think, the Driss Legends. This is The Legacy, book 7, I think. Starless Night. Siege of Darkness. I only bought this recently. It's a newer book and I love this cover. Relentless. Also by Salvatore, The Starlight Enclave, the first book in the Way of the Drow. This is the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson. I've only read The Final Empire and I don't intend to finish it. So I'm not sure. I might be unhauling this. Book 2, The Well of Ascension. 3, The Hero of Ages. This is my Witcher paperback series. The Last Wish is a prequel of short stories. I think Season of Storms is also short stories and also a prequel. Sword of Destiny is the last book that Sapkowski wrote in this series, though it is a prequel novel. The first book in the actual series, Blood of Elves. Book 2, Time of Contempt. 3. Baptism of Fire. 4. The Tower of the Swallow. And the final book, The Lady of the Lake. This is the series of unfortunate events by Lemony Snicket. They're kind of fantasy, so I'm including them. The first book is The Bad Beginning. Book 2, The Reptile Room. 3, The Wide Window. 4, The Miserable Mill. 5, The Austere Academy. 6, The Ersatz Elevator. 7, The Vile Village, which is the one I'm up to. The Hostile Hospital is 8. 9, The Carnivorous Carnival. 10, The Slippery Slope. 11, The Grim Grotto. 12, The Penultimate Peril. And the final book, The End. I bought this because I liked the film Conan the Barbarian by Al Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter. I have the books which are based on the films. This is Star Wars by George Lucas. The Empire Strikes Back by Donald E. Glut. Return of the Jedi by James Caan. Neil Stephenson, The Diamond Age. Sherry S. Tepper is an author I really like. A Plague of Angels. Beyond the Shadows, Book 3 in the Night Angel series, I think, by Brent Weeks. I have the first in my TBR. I love Margaret Weis, and this is one of my favourites of hers, Star of the Guardians, the first book, The Lost King. 2, King's Test. 3, King's Sacrifice. 4, Ghost Legion. The Dark Sword trilogy, which she wrote with Tracy Hickman. First book is Forging the Dark Sword. 2, Doom of the Dark Sword. 3, Triumph of the Dark Sword. The Chronicles trilogy, also with Hickman. Dragons of Autumn Twilight is the first book. 2, Dragons of Winter Night. 3, Dragons of Spring Dawning. The Rose of the Prophet series she also wrote with Hickman. The first book, The Will of the Wanderer. Book 2, The Paladin of the Night. 3, The Prophet of Akran. This she wrote with Don Perrin. The first book is The Robot Blues. I don't remember the name of the series. Book 2, The Knights of the Black Earth. I actually forgot I had this. City of Bones by Martha Wells. The Memory, Sorrow and Thorn series by Tad Williams. The first book is The Dragonbone Chair. I've read this, but I haven't finished the series. Book 2, Stone of Farewell. To Green Angel Tower, this is part 1, Siege. Part 2, Storm. I think they're one book in the States. Metropolitan by Walter John Williams, sci-fi. The Chung Kyo series by David Wingrove. The first book, The Middle Kingdom. Book 2, The Broken Wheel. 3, The White Mountain. 4, The Stone Within. I like the TV show Man from Atlantis, so I bought the book by Richard Woodley. I have a few Janie Warts books. This is a standalone, The Master of White Storm. Another standalone, Sorcery's Legacy. The first book in the Cycle of Fire, Storm Warden, also by Warts. Jonathan Wiley, The Servants of the Ark series. The first book is the first named. Second book, The Centre of the Circle. I don't have them all. apparently. This is the third book in the Unbalanced Earth series, The Age of Chaos. I think I bought it thinking it was the third book in the other series. The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey. I really like Timothy Zahn's Star Wars series. I also really enjoyed this. I think it's Conqueror's Legacy. First book, Conqueror's Pride. The second book, Conqueror's Heritage. And the final book, Conqueror's Legacy. Well, I hope you enjoyed this tour. Let me know what you think of my collection, and you can let me know down in the comments, or you can contact me on Instagram. You can expect the second part of this tour, which will include my TBR shelves and all my hardcovers, in the next week or so. Or so I hope. Anyway, yeah, it depends when I finish recording it because I haven't yet. Well, thank you all very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this tour. And if you did, then you can do the usual. You can like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, as it helps my channel to grow. I hope you all have a beautiful day, and I will see you next time. Bye.